So today we're going to be talking about the number one thing which is holding you back from making real deep inner transformational change that's effortless and that's complete. If you don't know me, my name is Aaron. I'm a shadow work consultant where I work mainly with the unconscious mind, resolving and healing shadows, as well as some conscious coaching, which I've learned from various different mentors as well. So we have both sides, the unconscious and the conscious mind, working together so we can create real deep transformational change for you, the listener, right? For the person who's watching this and for my clients. This is a topic which, when I was more active on Facebook, when I was more active earlier on in my career, would usually be much more controversial. And it's because I'm going after the idea that ego is the enemy. This is an idea that comes originally from Stoicism, which has a lot of good stuff going on in that framework, but also, as you're about to find out, it has some flaws too. So the book is called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, and it was a massive public hit. And it kind of changed the self-help or self-development world for good, because he popularized Stoicism, which is great. It's a great system, great philosophy to look at. But like a lot of people do, whether this is in Buddhism or Hinduism or even just shadow work and therapy in general, they kind of really essentialize something. So essentialize, what I mean by that is they really make everything come down to the bare essentials, which sounds good in practice. But the problem comes because it misunderstands, or I don't know necessarily about Stoicism, but I know in Buddhism and Hinduism, they definitely do this. But it misunderstands or it misrepresents some of the core teachings of whatever philosophy that they're doing, right? So when it comes to ego is the enemy, if you not only have internalized this mindset, but also actively believe it, this is one of the things which is going to make your journey very, very uncomfortable, very, very painful, unnecessarily, I might add, and also will just make something much, much more ineffectual. Why am I saying all of this? Because your ego is a part of who you are. I'm not talking from a psychotherapy lens. I'm talking more from an Eastern Dharmic lens. My teacher was Sister Kema. Her teacher before her was Bhante Vimalaramsi. So I'm not just someone who's done like a 10-day meditation retreat once and suddenly claims to know the teachings of the Buddha, which I'm not making that claim, by the way. But ego is part of who we are. It has a lot of different definitions. But the thing that's all in common with all of these different definitions is it's just a part of who we are, okay? Now, I'll ask you, if something is a part of who we are and we make it the enemy of the rest of us, does that sound like a harmonious way to live? Does that sound like an easy way to live? Does that sound like this part of us is going to be supportive and help us through our journey and not make any fuss and just go along with whatever we do? I think you're starting to see what I'm getting at right now. So, why do we expect something different to happen when we call something the enemy of us? When we call something the enemy of us, we automatically put distance between us, and not only do we put distance between us, we also put them at the opposite side, which means that we have to be taking a side to begin with, right? Now, what they mean is by ego is the enemy, is that ego is not who we are. And that's true. It's not who we are. But it's a part of who we are. It's a part of what makes up Aaron. It's a part of what makes up you, okay? And most likely what they're trying to say, in fact, I'm almost certain this is what they're trying to say, but I don't want to say for certain because I don't know the person in front of me, is that there's something beyond that. Some people call this a soul, some people call this a source, some people will call this God, right? Other people will call this the true self. Some people will call this the non-self, right? But there is something in the absolute sense which is beyond Aaron, which is the awareness that watches Aaron, and the awareness that watches even that awareness, okay? So in that sense, it's absolutely right. Now, you can go and investigate this, do some meditation retreats, a few hundred hours doing some meditation, and you can actually really investigate this phenomenon that's arising, something that's greater than the self, that's Aaron, or Samantha, or Patrick, or whatever, right? You don't have to take my word for it. But this is essentially where the idea comes from, okay? In Stoicism, I can't say for sure, but I know that Stoicism takes a lot of Eastern philosophy, or a lot of similar kind of foundations in Eastern philosophy. And definitely over time, the two have become very linked, right? So that's specifically what I'm talking about right now. Now, whilst in the absolute sense, Aaron might not be real, or the ego that's driving Aaron might not be real, on a relative day-to-day scale, Aaron is still very much here. He's still very much talking to the camera. He still very much has his own thoughts, feelings, and emotions. If I then alienate either Aaron or a part of Aaron, then that's going to have absolutely disastrous consequences when it comes to trying to change my life. And not only trying to change my life, maybe even just improve my life, make it better, live more authentically, live more in alignment, live in a way which makes less suffering. Because if somebody calls you an enemy, if someone calls you an enemy, that automatically makes you lash out again, right? It's kind of like a karmic response if you want to talk about it that way, where action, reaction, action, reaction. Karma means action, by the way, if I'm remembering it correctly, which I'm pretty sure I am, right? It just means, it just means action, right? So the karma of someone calling you the enemy means that you're going to have an equal opposite reaction to that. There's no exception when it comes to the ego within you. So if you've alienated and you say, oh, ego is the enemy, I'm just going to do it anyway, my ego's complaining, all this kind of stuff, or, oh, I want to be successful, that's just my ego talking, right? You are automatically alienating and making something confrontational within you, automatically. So then when you need this part of you to play along with something, because you will, because it's a big part of you, okay? In order for you to make a change, all of you has to make that change. Otherwise that change will be very painful if there's even change at all, right? So we've outlined the dangers here of this way of thinking. So what's the alternative? And this will be a simple video. I'm just going to give you the alternative right now. Instead of calling it the enemy, you don't call it anything. You drop the label. It's just something or a part of you within you that's acting in a certain way. You don't even have to call it good. But there is a dropping of labels. And when there's a dropping in labels, you have neutrality. You have a space where you can actually see what's happening with wisdom, right? So when we get on calls, or when I get on calls with clients, getting to this space where there's no labels, or what we would call in, shadow work projections on my end, and I can just see what's actually happening within the person, and I can invite them into that space too. This is when real healing and real growth happens like that, right? Because the storylines and the labels are no longer there. So instead of us looking at what we think is happening, we can look at what is actually happening and why it's happening and how it began to happen and how it started. And when you understand that, then it becomes very easy to do something about it. I'll give you an example, right? It's like if you're trying to lose weight. Losing weight is extremely, extremely simple. It's so simple. You eat less than you burn, right? The only exception to this is like a few really, really rare, I think autoimmune diseases, or maybe something to do with like the thyroid gland, right? But this is like less than 1% of people, right? Losing weight is extremely straightforward. However, it's not easy because you have to go without food, basically. It becomes much easier, though, when you write out every single day what you are eating, when you track your calories, basically. So you're no longer guessing how many calories you're consuming, which, by the way, is extremely hard because there's so many calories in small things like oil or fat. So you take the guesswork out of it. It's the same concept when it comes to conscious coaching, unconscious coaching. You need to take the guesswork out of it. Because if you know how much you're eating, then you know, when we just cut 200 calories out, we up the steps by however many thousand steps, and then you're good to go, right? It works the same when it comes to coaching and helping somebody through a healing process. If you don't even know how something got there or how it started, and you don't know how it is that it's remaining here, then you're going to have a very tough time. And you don't want to overcomplicate that, which is the point of this whole video, by having a whole part of you called the ego being really resentful towards you because you called it the enemy, right? Instead, we can employ that part to help us because it's our friend, it's a part of who we are, right? We don't want a confrontational energy. It's much easier to plan things with your friends than your enemies, right? And there are many different parts of you active within here, many different parts of you. So we need to stop the alienation and stop the confrontation. When you do that, harmony arises naturally, or much more naturally. And when harmony arises, you have access to so many more resources because there's not this whole part of you that maybe wants to spite you or maybe doesn't want to spite you. So, a quick little video about the number one thing which is killing transformational progress. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll get back to you. I'm doing video responses to people when I have the time. If you want something a little bit more than that, then there's my link down in the description below where you can book in a quick kind of call. I don't do any hardcore sales or any real selling at all. We just talk about where you are, what your goals are, and how I can help you. And if you're not ready for that, then you can just subscribe and watch the videos that are coming up. Okay? Have a nice day.